Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, sometimes the most fascinating rabbit holes are hidden in these really technical, super specialized corners of a community.
Oh, absolutely.
And today, we are diving deep into a geometric headache that has basically defined the whole conversation around the new city builder, Anno 117, Pax Romana.
It really has.
I mean, this game dropped on November 13th, 2025, and ever since, players have been completely divided over one single feature, being able to build things diagonally.
Just a 45-degree angle. Seems so simple.
Right. So our mission today is a crash course in spatial reasoning. We're going to figure out exactly why letting you place a house at an angle forces the game engine to, well, abandon mathematical perfection, and what that means for you when you're trying to build your perfect Roman Empire.
Yeah, it's a great topic.
Okay, let's unpack this surprising stack of sources.
What's so interesting here is that the core problem, it has nothing to do with Rome.
Not at all.
It's all high school geometry and, computer science.
Yeah.
It all comes down to what the community has, I think very accurately, called the diagonal curse.
The diagonal curse. I love that.
Yeah. So think about almost any classic city builder. They all run on a simple square grid, like graph paper.
Yep. One square up is one unit, one square across is one unit. Clean.
Exactly. Clean, rational numbers. 1, 2, 5.
Right here.
But the moment you go diagonally, from one corner of a 1x1 square to the other, you're calculating the hypotenuse.
Okay. And that length is the square root of 2.
The square root of 2, the dreaded irrational number,
Yeah.
1.41421356.
Yep.
And it never, ever ends.
And that's where the computer, well, kind of freaks out. The entire system that places every road, every house, every pig farm,
Yeah.
it's all built on rational numbers.
So integers, or like very clean fractions.
Exactly. And when you try to represent that never-ending number, that score-to-j, in a finite digital space, you have to round it. You just have to. So it's like the computer saying, okay, this is supposed to be 1.41421, but my tape measure only goes to 2 decimal places, so I'm just going to call it 1.41.
That is a perfect analogy. And if you do that once, it's a tiny error. You'd never notice. But a city isn't one piece, right? It's thousands of pieces, all supposed to be touching all along a huge diagonal line.
And all those little rounding errors, they start to add up.
Like accumulate fast.
Oh, that road that looks perfectly straight to my eye is actually, on a micro level, zigzagging because the computer keeps cutting the numbers short.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And eventually that tiny error becomes a visible gap or an overlap, and the system just breaks down. It wouldn't even register that 2 buildings are actually connected.
Wow. Okay, so that's a fascinating constraint. So if this is such a known problem, I mean, why not just use a different system, like a hex grid, maybe?
That's a great question. And I think the sources give us a really strong clue, the Anno series. It's been using this square grid for over 20 years.
It's part of its DNA?
It is. And to switch to something like a hex grid would mean rewriting the entire core engine from scratch. A massive, massive undertaking.
Okay, so they went with the easier path.
It seems so. As one user pointed out, they probably figured, okay, the math doesn't fit the grid, so we'll make the objects fit the grid instead.
They cheat the size of the building, not the coordinate system.
Exactly. They literally resize the geometry of the building when you rotate it.
And you can actually see this, right? The sources have specific numbers on this.
Oh, yeah. It's noticeable.
A standard house placed on the straight grid takes up, 9 squares of area?
9 squares. But the second you rotate it diagonally, snap, the code shrinks its footprint. It now only covers 8 squares.
That 1 square is the price you pay for the diagonal.
It's the price of fitting that irrational number back onto the rational grid. And it's not just buildings.
The roads, too, I saw.
The roads get hit hard. Multiple players have pointed out that diagonal roads just look thicker.
Yeah.
They often take up the width of 2 squares instead of 1.
Oh, wow. So if your most basic unit, the road, changes size just because you rotate it, any hope of perfect symmetrical city planning is just gone.
It's completely out the window.
That throws a huge wrench into any kind of optimization. Which, of course, leads us right into the big community argument. Does diagonal building save space, or does it waste it?
And it's a great debate, because you can make a case for both sides, theoretically.
Right. I saw one player did the math. If you just look at a house plus half the road in front of it.
Yep.
The diagonal layout uses 10 squares. The straight one uses 10.5. That's a 5% space saving.
5%, which sounds amazing.
For a min-max player, that's everything. That could be hundreds of extra houses in a big city. I can see why people got so excited about that.
Absolutely. It's like catnip for optimizers.
Yeah.
But there's a huge catch.
Which is?
That math only works if you're building on what they call an infinite empty field, just tiling perfect diagonal squares forever and ever.
Which, obviously, you're not.
You're not. And the developers actually weighed in on this. We have a quote from their dev blog, and they were pretty clear. They said, on average, taking advantage of the diagonal option means that you will use slightly more space.
So it's official, it's less efficient,
Hmm.
but where does the waste come from then if the houses themselves are getting smaller?
It's the negative space.
Yeah.
The inefficiency comes from all the awkward, unusable triangular gaps you create at the edges.
Ah.
When you try to connect a diagonal block back to a straight one, or when you run up against the coast of your island,
Yeah.
you're left with all these little pockets of land that no building can fit in. So you might save half a square on one house, but you waste 3 full squares at the end of the block.
So your overall density just tanks.
Exactly. You pay an efficiency tax.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because this is where the abstract math causes like real tangible frustration for players.
Yep.
Let's talk about what the community is calling the pig farm paradox.
The pig farm paradox. It's become a whole meme.
It has. And the paradox is it's apparently impossible to build a perfect, symmetrical, tiled rectangle of pig farms when they're placed diagonally.
And this is the painful real-world result of everything we've been talking about. It's not just a weird math quirk. It's a design constraint you can feel.
Because pig farms aren't simple squares.
Right. They have these specific, larger dimensions. And when you combine the fact that the diagonal roads are twice as wide, and the farms themselves are being subtly resized to fit the grid,
The symmetry just breaks.
it completely shatters. You can't tile them perfectly. You get these annoying little gaps or slight overlaps that stop you from placing the next one.
I saw one post where a player said they spent 20 minutes just trying to make it work, just trying to build a simple block of farms.
It really speaks to that human need for order, you know?
Mhm.
And people are drawing some great parallels. It reminds them of that classic visual illusion, the missing square puzzle.
Oh, right, where the shapes are rearranged and a square just vanishes.
Exactly. Because the proportions are secretly changing. But here, in Anno, that illusion is being enforced by the game engine itself.
And this whole thing has basically split the player base into 2 camps.
2 very clear factions.
Tell me about them, because I think everyone listening will know exactly which one they're in.
Well, on one side, you have the pure optimizers, the grid fanatics.
The efficiency crowd.
Yes. And for them, the wasted space, the gaps, the inability to tile perfectly, it is infuriating. They see this as, and I'm quoting, terrible design.
Because it actively works against their goal of maximum density.
It does. But then you have the other camp, the aesthetic builders, the realists.
And they love it.
They are celebrating it. They love being able to finally break the tyranny of the 90-degree box.
They can build more organic cities, things that curve around a river or a mountain.
Exactly. As one person put it, with curves we can be more creative. For them, that freedom is worth the slight inefficiency.
So it's a tool for creative freedom, but it comes with a technical penalty. The choice between the perfect box and the beautifully flawed curve.
That's a great way to put it.
But what about the efficiency players? Or just people who get annoyed by the chaos? What can they do? Did the developers give them any way to manage this?
Oh, they did. Absolutely.
Yeah.
This wasn't something they forced on everyone. There are options.
Okay, good.
For one, you can still lock buildings to the straight grid. That's a feature from Anno 1800. But more importantly, when you're laying down a road, you can toggle an option to turn off the diagonal building snap.
Oh, that's clever. So I can have an angled road, but force my pig farms to snap at a perfect 90 degrees to it.
You can. It's a really good compromise. And for things that don't snap to roads at all, like decorations, you can still rotate them manually and just eyeball the alignment yourself.
So the tools are there if you're willing to fight the grid a little.
They are. And this whole system, really, the difficulty, the scaling, the frustration, it all points back to that core issue. This isn't a bug. It's a constraint. It's what happens when you try to add a modern feature to a game engine that's, decades old and was never designed for it.
So the only way to truly fix the diagonal curse would be to switch to a totally free placement system where there's no grid at all.
Exactly. But that would fundamentally change what Anno is. So the developers chose a compromise. They prioritized that aesthetic flexibility over pure mathematical precision.
It's just incredible how much complexity is packed into a simple 45-degree angle. We've gone from geometry to number theory to game design, all because of some frustrated Roman city builders.
It's the ultimate trade-off, isn't it? Trading perfect Tileable efficiency for a visually appealing but mathematically flawed shape.
And the irony of it all, given the game setting.
It's just beautiful. The game is Pax Romana, the Roman Empire, a civilization famous for building its cities and camps on brutally rigid 90-degree grids.
The Cardo and Decumanus, right?
Yeah. Yes. They were obsessed with it. And as one really clever user pointed out, the Romans themselves were not great at complex geometry. They tended to avoid complex diagonal work in their own architecture.
Huh. So the game lets us break the very Roman grids that the Romans themselves loved.
And by doing so, we are immediately smacked in the face with the same mathematical problems that have frustrated builders for thousands of years.
It really makes you rethink what optimization even means. Sometimes the most logical, most perfect solution isn't the one we want.
Indeed. If the choice is always between the perfectly efficient, perfectly tiled box and the beautifully flawed, slightly misaligned curve, what percentage of efficiency are you willing to sacrifice for aesthetics, whether it's in a game or something else?
Something to think about while you're trying just one more time to get those pig farms to line up.